by talking about, apparently, Boris Johnson, in his memoirs, he claims that he was asked to persuade Prince Harry to stay in the UK. He said that he spoke to the Duke of Sussex for 20 minutes. He said it was a manly pep talk. I would have thought he only gets those from Meghan. And the prince still decided to move his family to North America. I mean, maybe it was the conversation with Boris that sent Harry over the edge. But what do you think of that?
Well, I can see there probably might have been some constitutional reason for doing it, as he was the Prime Minister at the time, to try and prevent him splitting from the royal family from a constitutional point of view. And probably during that 20 minutes, discovered that Harry wasn't for turning, and then off he was going to go. But I suppose everyone was trying to somehow make sure that Harry was making this for all the right reasons. Well, Harry obviously feels he's made it for all the right reasons, but from a constitutional point of view, Boris stepping in last minute, well, eccentric though that may seem, but actually from a practical point of view, I don't see that as a total surprise at all, because I'm sure the whole royal family, the institution, and indeed probably within the sort of wheels of government, were probably disappointed that he felt he had to take this course of action. And Boris stepping up to the plate, nothing really surprising about that. But as you say, it may have been the straw that broke the camel's back.
But I want to talk first, Rupert, about tensions between Harry and Meghan on Netflix, a polo documentary that doesn't appear to have very much of Harry in it. What do you make of this?
Well, obviously, like most of us, I haven't seen it. It's presumably the internal discussions. There's always a problem. Polo, and my feeling when they said they were going to produce a programme about polo, it's not going to move the Netflix viewer dial because it's a pretty specialist subject. Now, if you're going
how can you do a 5-part documentary about mints? That's what I want to know.
Well, indeed. I mean, it's
or even the sport. Even the sport.
We are missing the mint with a hole in it.
We are. Yeah.
But the point being, polo is an elite sport. If it's going to be about Harry's friend Nacho, I can't remember his surname.
Figueres. He's a little-known Argentinian player apparently, but yeah, they're saying they don't want him. They want Harry.
And by all accounts, the polo player in question loves the limelight.
Right.
But the point, and polo is. Look, it's a playboy environment. It's a plaything for the rich because you don't actually make any money out of it. It's ego-driven sport because to run a polo team is extremely expensive, and the patrons of polo teams usually extremely wealthy individuals, and it's all about the ego. And polo, look, it's a highly skilled sport, and Argentina produces its more than fair share of high-quality players, and there is obviously a playboy element to it as well. But actually, is it going to be something that's going to be resonating with the general public? I just can't see it. I don't know, unless they've got some, Harry's come up with some secret sort of equation to make it a highly interesting documentary. I'm not sure that we're going to see anything new. We're going to know that it's an expensive sport to run. Horses have to be looked after. It's dangerous at places for horse and rider. Yet it's but it's a sport that is enjoyed by lots of people. But the people who tend to go there, Peter, tend to not have a clue what's going on. They're just going there for a social occasion, getting nice champagne and canapes and doing a lot of moi.
Yes, indeed. So Nacho Figueres is featuring far more in this than Prince Harry. If you signed an £80 million deal with Harry and Meghan, you'd presumably expect a little bit more bang for your buck as Netflix, I would imagine.
Prince Harry is back. I don't know whether exactly when he's arriving, but he's arriving into what can only be described as an absolute pig of a day. So he hasn't brought the California sunshine with him.
No, it is a pig of a day. I imagine he came in last night because the WellChild Award is this evening, something that he has been committed to for a very long time, not just coming this weekend, but over recent years. Is a charity that's very close to his heart. So I'm going to give him plenty of credit in the bank in this one. It's something that he is passionate about. The charity absolutely welcome his input. So for him to be at the WellChild Awards, I think he's presenting some and seeing some of the recipients tonight, it's perfectly normal for him and something that he's always maintained strong links with and comes back on an annual basis.
Well, I'm glad that you've mentioned
be part of the WellChild Award.
I'm glad that you've mentioned credit in the bank, because I wanted to ask you about that, because apparently Archewell was gifted 2 grants of more than $6 million over the last 2 years, but both of them are missing from the latest tax return that Archewell has put in. So there's some questions being asked about the missing millions.
Yes, but there may be, again, the next accounting period probably will expect to show that this payment has been received. $4 million, I believe, is the outstanding amount.
Yeah.
If it doesn't appear on the next tax return, then there may be some questions to answer for. But at the moment, it just appears that it's one of those accounting processes that they've gone through. Exactly what's happened, I don't know. I'm not privy to the accounts 100%, but it just probably is, more than anything, it's just not a good look. And inevitably, people are always putting their accounts under the microscope, and this is an example of that. I might just give them, again, some benefit of the doubt with this one, but whenever the next tax returns are due to be filed and it's not there, then that might be a more serious issue. But I'm not expecting this to suddenly reveal a can of worms and complications for the Sussexes.
No, I'll make sure we just label that one up and put it in the bank for so the use of the word bank again for future use, just in case it comes back to bite you.
Another massive mistake by Meghan Markle, whose astonishingly naive response to a minor setback has created a career-crushing crisis. As a result, Meghan and Harry's showbiz ambitions are all washed up. In the pitiless bear pit of Tinseltown, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are finished. Why? Because Meghan just couldn't let it go. Because she clearly has yet to learn that when you're in a hole, stop digging. After the respected Hollywood Reporter published extensive claims by former employees that the ex-game show glamour girl is a bullying dictator in high heels who stages noisy tantrums and reduces grown men to tears, here's what she should have done. Nothing. But here's what she did. Mounted a major counterattack in a bid to persuade the public that the multiple Duchess difficult allegations were all lies. This forced Hollywood Reporter editor Maya Roshan onto the widely watched American TV show Access Hollywood to defend his story and reveal that his journalists had interviewed 11 of Harry and Meghan's former workers and 1 who is still on their payroll. At this dangerously low point, Meghan really should have bowed out, let it ride, and wait for the storm to pass. But no, she was determined to dig herself ever deeper into trouble. Suddenly, the new edition of the gossip mag Us was full of gushing guff about what a wonderful boss Meghan is. Sources close to her disclosing that, and I quote, "The Sussexes water the seeds so that we can flourish." Pass the sick bag. Who talks like that? Contrary to everything we've heard on both sides of the Atlantic, apparently Meg and Harry are a caring couple who give their grateful underlings old baby clothes and fresh flowers. Yeah, right. No, wrong, it soon transpired. With the bee's nest unwisely poked, the marvellous Meghan mirage swiftly evaporated when the Daily Beast hit back with more tales of horror, maintaining that she is, in fact, a demon prone to psycho moments. Ouch. Here's the thing. When she saw the Hollywood Reporter article, she must have known that it wasn't a total fabrication. Therefore, she should have put up and shut up. But now her mania for image polishing has propelled the bully narrative into perpetual motion and enshrined it in the minds of the entertainment industry's movers and shakers. Having made a manageable situation unmanageable, Meghan has succeeded in getting herself onto Hollywood's unwritten blacklist, filed under don't touch with a barge pole. Meanwhile, Prince Harry spends more and more time on his own, but his wife has plunged him into one more mess by putting his British royal name to Meghan's grandiose call for all Americans to vote in the presidential election. Harry has alienated himself on an epic scale. As a foreigner who is not even allowed to participate in US democracy, what the hell has whether or not citizens decide to vote got to do with him? One angry social media critic posted, "Harry, you have no place involving yourself in American politics. Go home, Harry, and straighten out your own business. Stay out of ours. We don't want to hear you." Quite. Meanwhile, the jet-setting Duke, whose virtue-signalling commitment to saving the planet does not extend to reducing his frequent flying, is making yet another solo trip back to Britain. Nevertheless, the unsettled prince insists he is not about to quit the States on a permanent basis. But with a wilderness of nothing much ahead, how will Harry fill his future? And what will Meghan do? For the dynamic power couple whose mission to change the world has dissolved into a directionless funk, these are uncertain times.
Let's talk now about the King reflecting on his mother, the late Queen's final days in Scotland. Quite a lot of interesting detail here that he's been talking about, Rupert.
Yes, indeed, and really reflecting how the family were and the connection between the royal family and Scotland, and the importance that the royal family plays, the part that Scotland plays in their lives. And you know that the Queen just absolutely adored being in Balmoral. It was a happy place. It was actually significant that he made a lot of these statements within celebrating 25 years of the Scottish Parliament, which again, I suppose, is a significant moment, stressing the love that the royal family have for Scotland and the part, as I say, that it plays in their life. And you know the King relishes his time in Scotland and has been using it, certainly over these last few months, as a way to aid his recovery, taking long walks in the Scottish countryside. Is an area that he, the importance of it, and the also importance that the family were so supportive that the Queen should be allowed to have her final place to enjoy being in Balmoral. So that when she died on September the 8th, she was in Balmoral, had been for a long time. And while there were concerns, and the Queen's concerns were that it's going to be logistically difficult to get for me to get back to London when I've died, but actually the family wanted that. And to me, one of the most significant parts of that period when the cortege left Balmoral to go to Edinburgh was one of the most moving parts of the whole return to London for the late Queen, and those significant moments, those tractors, the horses, and everything else that we saw through the Scottish countryside really it was the perfect advert for one of the most beautiful countries in the world anyway, but it actually symbolised the significance and why the Queen loved her time in Balmoral, as do so many other members of the royal family.
Yes, it's a real retreat for them, certainly. And of course, as you hinted there, the uniquely special place, the King said, Scotland has always had a uniquely special place in the hearts of my family and myself, saying the King added his beloved grandmother was proudly Scottish, of course, referring to the Queen Mother as we knew her, Queen Elizabeth, the other Queen Elizabeth. The Queen Consort, Queen Elizabeth, I should say. And of course, the Queen trying, as you mentioned there, to make sure that dying at Balmoral was something that was right, was proper, was something that at the end of such an incredible life, and we couldn't hold on to her forever. She was 96 years old when she left us, having served this grateful nation for over 7 decades. But she wanted to be as little a bother as she could be, because she knew it would be such a big occasion and would have to be. But of course, if you're not in London where all the sort of infrastructure exists. But then the country, as you correctly say, Rupert, did us proud, the pomp, the ceremony, the send-off that was so befitting such an incredible figure of national and historical stature.
Indeed, and when you think her father, I think he was in Sandringham, and it was easier logistically to get back to London. So I think, but actually the Queen's happy place was Scotland. We know about that throughout her life. And as you alluded to, her mother, obviously very Scottish. But, the King loves being up there, Balmoral. Look, it's the change now. And he's obviously got Berkeley, but we've seen the significance of the King and Dumfries House and what important part that plays in his sort of working life and what he wants to leave as a legacy, because he really enjoys being in Scotland, like so many of us do. But you can also feel, the Queen did make that statement coming around the referendum that she hoped, without implying, that people made a long and hard decision before they voted.
Yes.
And obviously the independent vote didn't win, but you actually see that Scott, what he did yesterday, you feel it's part of the King just saying, we are a united kingdom, and I love Scotland, perhaps almost indicating more than the rest of the country. I don't know whether that's true, but his passion for Scotland certainly came through what he said in the Scottish Parliament.
The Mail are reporting now that Harry and Meghan's charity Archewell was gifted 2 grants of more than $6 million over the last 2 years, but both are missing from the charity's latest tax return. The discovery has prompted speculation over what has happened to these missing millions. It's understood Archewell believes its records only declared the $2 million are correct. Mail Online are reporting they can confirm it's legal and possible that the money will appear on the next return. They're also saying it couldn't have happened at the worst time, because it was only given the green light to spend and raise money again earlier this year after charity officials branded it delinquent and not in good standing. Now, Archewell, of course, has had controversy before when it came to some of the statements that it's put out, not financial ones, but statements it's put out where it's perhaps taken credit for projects that it wasn't directly involved in. I think at one point it took credit for some of the vaccine rollout for COVID, which it didn't really have anything to do with. Let's not also forget Prince Harry's controversy as patron of a charity that has had all sorts of impropriety when it comes to some of the behaviours of the charities that he's been a patron of as well. So this is not going to be welcome news, is it?
Well, all negative publicity is not helpful for Meghan and Harry as they try and rebuild their lives. They've got to make sure they look squeaky clean. Now, I don't know enough. I haven't read it, so I can't give a full commentary on it. But there does seem to be a chapter of a sort of events here, the sort of cloud judgment, grey areas, I think is probably the best way of describing it. And let's hope there isn't something untoward. But it wouldn't be a good look if it was. But really, they should make sure that their accounting is absolutely squeaky clean at all times, because whether they like it or not, there will be a spotlight on them and the way they're going about, about going about a business. So I think whatever, it's clearly something that's going to give the Archewell people a little bit of a headache to make sure they get the picture absolutely right and that there is no impropriety.
And I think that there are 2 issues here, actually, regarding these sorts of stories. One is their turnover of staff, because when you have a regular turnover of staff at really short intervals, things get missed, inevitably, in any organisation. I mean, I have a bit of sympathy for them with that. Of course, some people might say that the turnover of staff is because they're not particularly nice to work for, but that's going to cause issues. But secondly, is this not an example, once again, and we've seen it when it came to some of their royal tours, where they've ended up perhaps taking finance for some of the security from some rather dodgy and dubious figures, that not being within the royal fold but carrying out royal things like being involved in charity, going on royal tours, when you haven't got the due diligence done by being part of the royal machine, that's going to lead to these sorts of things potentially happening.
And I think that's one of the problems. The safety net of the royal family is huge, and there's sort of checks and balances within to make sure that everything is done properly. And maybe, as you say, the high turnover of staff is something that then is a big problem for them, not just in Archewell, but full stop. And that, as a result, can cause problems. And they need to make sure that everyone's got their eye on the ball, because maybe Meghan's quite difficult to work for. There's a good deal of pressure to get everything, everything 100% right. And that is a big concern for them going forward for the Archewell team. How can they make sure they are seen to be doing everything right. But if you've got a high turnover of staff, you need loyalty at all times from your staff. Now, people move on all the time, but it just does seem to me, in this case, the human drain is enormous, and sort of the churn within Archewell does not help their cause. But let's hope that there is nothing untoward in this, because if it is, then that's going to add further sort of problems for the Harry and Meghan machine going forward.
Archewell, their charity, has failed to declare $4 million worth of donations on their latest tax return. Now, apparently, this is okay as long as they get it in their next tax return. But not a good look. They were gifted 2 grants of more than $6 million over the past 2 years. Both of these gifts are missing from the charity's latest tax returns, but they've got to make up for that later. I mean, it just sort of adds to this image that it's just all a bit of a shambles.
And the grifters, the idea that these two are grifters, they don't execute anything. Nothing is done properly. This reminds me of those headlines we had a few years ago. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's charity suffered an $11 million decline in donations. So we're missing donations. There's a decline in donations, but whether or not everything works out in the end, because Archewell says that they declared everything properly, and the Daily Mail confirms that if it's on the next, as you said, if it's on the next tax return, all is well. You don't want the term missing millions associated with your charity.
Exactly. Missing millions, that's what's on the headline, and that's a bad headline. I mean, the point is, Kinsey, you and I, last 2-3 weeks, all we've been discussing with these two is this sort of mounting number of extremely negative headlines. Nothing positive. Harry's over here now at the WellChild Awards, probably, doing himself some good. But it's always bad news with these two. She seems to have sort of retired almost. You never see her. And he seems to be doing more and more alone. But it all adds up to a kind of feeling that it's all disparate, it's falling apart, and nothing positive is coming out of Montecito Towers, right?
Well, let me tell you why I think we're seeing so many negative headlines about these two lately.
Yeah, go on.
Because they hired 2 brand new PR people in April, and Meghan Markle, I personally believe, wants them to sit on the internet and on their phones all day long, providing rebuttals to all of these stories she doesn't like that Us Weekly cover. And as we've discussed before, the more you fight back on some of these headlines, the more elevated, the bigger presence that story becomes. Yeah. And while some people had retired the Valentine Lowe bullying story that appeared before the Oprah Winfrey interview, after that Us Weekly article came out, now everybody's talking about those Kensington Palace bully stories all over again. So now Meghan has magnified this story even more by insisting that Us Weekly run this puff piece. And I do think the reason we're seeing more negativity is because you've got these people on the phone trying to kill these stories where the palace never complain, never explain. You and I are no longer talking about that Prince Andrew show on Amazon because Prince Andrew didn't say anything, because the palace kept their head down. If they will just ignore a lot of these stories, it's on to the next news cycle. But the more Meghan fights it, the more we continue to address it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, for the audience, if you can imagine, if Andrew stood up now and said, "Oh, you've seen that programme on Amazon Prime, a very British royal scandal. It's absolute rubbish. I'll tell you, I didn't. How dare they say that about me?" If he did that, it'd be all over the front page. It would explode again. And you're quite right, Kinsey. What she's done in her naivety, she thinks she knows it all about Hollywood. She doesn't. She doesn't understand it. What she's done is she's propelled the bullying narrative into perpetual motion. She has hit back so many times, it will now never go away. Every time anyone thinks of her, she may deny that this is fair, but everyone will go bully.
Today it's emerged that Harry's appeared on Jimmy Fallon's show, and he does this horror maze thing you have to go through, and it's a bit. So there's sort of these pictures of Harry with the big word nightmare above his head, and I think that's a reference to his marriage.
Oh, very good, very good. But as you say, he's on the Jimmy Fallon show. That is. You know,
that's a cry for help. That's what that is.
They are
cry for help.
They are not washed.
Get me out of here.
I'll do Jimmy Fallon. I'll do whatever you want. They're not washed up.
People still want to see them. People will still put them on big, high-profile shows. This idea that behaving badly...
When was the last high-profile show he was on before that?
This idea about behaving badly... He was at the ESPN Awards. We were all talking about
it. Oh, great.
You know, high-profile.
This idea... Let me finish.
And he made a real dickhead of himself
this idea that behaving badly stops you working in Hollywood is just... It just doesn't wash with me.
So what they got lined up after Harry's uneagerly awaited polo crap.
Listen, there may be another
cooking show that we don't even know. What have they got lined up after that?
They've got a production company which they've got the options. Yeah. They've got the options to a lot of different things.
It's called Sleepy Hollow Productions.
Okay, but listen.
Tumbleweeds Productions.
You can laugh all you like, but being forceful and being a bit of a
bully.
Being a bit of a bully never killed anybody's career in Hollywood.
Yeah, as I say, let me
that's the case. Yeah. You're trying to make
mate, I know about Hollywood. They're
Let's jump into Harry and Meghan. It's been just a year since those Radar Online reports that Harry and Meghan were taking time apart. That was last summer, where rumors were swirling that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's marriage was on the rocks. Radar Online reported that Harry and Meghan were taking a break to heal and rebuild their bond. They're trying to figure out what hit them. Harry doesn't fit into Meghan's tacky Tinseltown world, a source told the outlet, adding that he's hoping to find himself. At the same time, Heat reported after a disastrous few months for the couple, we're told Meghan's feeling frustrated at her fall from grace, and Harry is in the firing line. Now, friends of Harry and Meghan told Page Six that the rumors weren't true, but Meghan was suspiciously absent throughout Prince Harry's promotion for his book, Spare. Heat reported Meghan can now see that whether it's fair or not, they are being viewed as these professional whiners. And it's not as simple as her distancing herself because she has to be seen as fully supportive of Harry. She's now regretting that she wasn't more hands-on or involved when he was putting his book together. Maureen, a year out, are H&M still seen as professional whiners?
Lindsay, I think the answer is a hard yes. So the Hollywood Reporter, I don't know if you saw this, but they just ran a really bruising story in which people on the inside of the industry have said that the town is over them. The industry is done with them. Everything they have attempted to do is a failure. What was really interesting to me about this piece is Meghan is repped by Ari Emanuel, the head of WME. He's one of the most powerful people in Hollywood. He could have killed that story if he wanted to. He did not. And this story had devastating quotes like, you know, she marches around like a little dictator in high heels. She's made grown men cry. She is a bully to work for. After reports that she tried to get the editor-in-chief, the co-editor-in-chief of the Hollywood Reporter, Mayor Rashawn, sacked, Rashawn said, guess what? Our source is on the inside and is still working for the Sussexes. So they have a traitor in their midst, which is just delicious. And WME also just threw a huge Emmys party last weekend. And guess who did not make the guest list? Harry and Meghan.
That's so true. Absolutely. And I have seen Harry and Meghan push back on that report. And I'm not criticizing some of the people I work with because it's somebody I know that reported that this individual said that they work in separate offices. So there's no dictator in heels marching around because they work in separate offices. And my argument to my friend that reported this would be, why would Harry and Meghan talk to a newer television station in the UK instead of acknowledging Access Hollywood, who reached out for comment when they did their piece on the Hollywood Reporter? Access Hollywood says, we reached out to the Sussexes for reaction and we didn't get one. Wouldn't it be in Harry and Meghan's best interest to fight these claims to access Hollywood than to a UK media outlet, especially when we know that they hate the UK media?
I mean, that makes such complete sense. Why wouldn't they deny to an outlet that has a far greater reach, that covers the industry? And what is so rich is that Harry is now in New York City without Meghan. He's here for like 8 days. It's part of UN week. He just gave a speech this morning as part of the Clinton Global Initiative, speaking against the dangers of online bullying, one of their favorite causes, bullying. And this is what Meghan is accused of over and over and over. She's been accused of it since she was brought into the royal fold, since before she ever married Prince Harry. And they just lost their top, I believe, communications aide or CEO. He left after only 3 months in the top job. So this is a historical footprint that these two have been leaving. And it only sort of ratifies these claims that she is an irredeemable bully. And as the Hollywood Reporter noted, they said, you know, Harry's actually kind of a nice guy, but he's just weak and an enabler, and he can't stand up to her. So it's already, we're sort of seeing this narrative of like, you know, Harry's just sort of yet another victim here. And can he escape the grasp of Meghan and save himself? That's what I think. That's where I think they're putting the story. Yeah.
What a great transition. Although I'm going to stop you right there, because in Tom Bower's Revenge, it almost sounds like Meghan was a bully in her first marriage. The way she just throws her wedding ring in a FedEx box and ships it to her husband. And that's the way he finds out he's getting a divorce. Or the way, allegedly, according to Tom Bower, she was just kind of a terror on the set. She was working with a clothing company out of Toronto that I assume is like a Dillard's or a Macy's on her own little line. And she was a terror on the set when they had their photo shoots. He says she kept a lot of the pieces that she wasn't supposed to, that the stylist had brought to dress up her outfits. And, you know, Suits just gave her this confidence that, you know, I guess made her in her own mind justify treating people very, very small. But when you talk about Harry, the big escape, could that narrative be in motion? Again, this is last year when sources told Heat that the Sussexes' professional failures are something that caused tension inside the home. And the Rolling Stone magazine at the same time wrote a piece titled Meghan Markle and Prince Harry are in their flop era. Has there been any significant growth for the Sussexes professionally since that headline? That was one of the first liberal outlets that we actually saw tear into them.
Yeah, you know, I mean, we've seen her stalled launch of American Riviera Orchard, which, you know, she made the grand mistake, but I'm sure it was deliberate, of launching that video within hours of Kate Middleton's announcement that she had been diagnosed with cancer. Since then, she's run into trademarking issues. She can't name it American Riviera Orchard anymore. You know, these amateur mistakes that were they able to attract and maintain top talent would not be plaguing them. And that sort of circles back to that anecdote that you were discussing from Bower's book, where she's doing this like low rent Canadian photo shoot, and she's being a monster to the people who are there to help her look good. You know, You don't treat people like that, especially on your way up, because guess what? You're going to meet them on your way down, which is where her career trajectory is going. And I think Harry sees this writing on the wall, because he seems to be maneuvering his way back into the royal fold. Very soft launch, but definite steps taken. Currently, he's working without Meghan right now. He apparently, our reporting says that he has opened up lines of communication with King Charles again. He pulped the additional chapter he had prepared for the paperback release of Spare, which is out next month. He's going back to London later this month. And it seems as though he sees that the California experiment has been an abject failure. He does not fit in with her people, her chosen industry, her aspirations. Our reporting just days ago was that his closest friend in LA is his bodyguard. I mean, does it get more grim than that?
Your best friend on the payroll. Well, let's talk about the latest with Harry and Meghan, because, you know, reflecting on what happened last year, it is bizarre to me that we're seeing some similarities. You know, not on my 2024 bingo card, but over the weekend, Prince Harry went to an A-list packed event without Meghan Markle in sight. You and I know that Meghan's number one objective since she was a little girl was to be accepted in Hollywood, to have A-list stars know her name, to acknowledge her. It's not only rare to see Harry and Meghan not together, especially at an event that would likely mean more to Meghan than Harry, but, you know, for Harry to arrive solo, it was also a rare moment because Prince Harry was actually presenting an award versus accepting one. So we should acknowledge that too. Like, let's give him a pat on the back. But this is, you know, Kevin Costner's big event. It's his beachfront estate where he holds this concert for Santa Barbara County first responders. Last year, I wonder if you remember this, there was the awkward moment when Meghan was there, and there was almost a tug of war between her and another woman on stage for the microphone. And it seemed as if the microphone wanted to give the woman wanted to give the microphone to Prince Harry. And so we're being told through the mirror that Meghan was sick. But a part of me also wonders, was Meghan's experience so negative last year, on top of some of the things we've discussed so far about Prince Harry distancing himself? Could Meghan have wanted to stay home because she was embarrassed last year? That clip went viral of her fighting over the microphone.
And that's not the only one, Kinsey. Now that you mention that, that recalls to me, there was this famous polo match, like maybe a year or 2 years into their relocation here. His great friend Nacho Figueroa was playing, and they were awarded the trophy, and Meghan forced her way into the photo frame and was trying to grab the trophy away from like the polo player who won it. I mean, she is shameless. It's just like, gimme, 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 gimme. And I think that she is seen as such a liability. And it really makes me wonder about the fracture in their relationship. It seems like a substantial one. You know, she loves a camera. She's a heat-seeking missile for a camera. If she were really sick, this may sound very cynical, but I really believe this. If she were really sick, we know exactly what she had. She is such a drama queen. Is it the flu? Is it pneumonia? Is it COVID-19? Is it some sort of personal thing? We would know. She loves to play the victim. I don't think she's sick. I think she's hiding her face.
Wow, that is so true. I'm so glad you made that point. One of my favorite headlines to come out of last weekend's event was singer Richard Marx accidentally ignores Prince Harry at Kevin Costner's charity event. That wouldn't happen with Meghan Markle in tow, would it? I mean, this was Meghan Markle's scene. And like you just said, she finds the camera.
Exactly. And I love that moment when you watch Richard Marx sort of coming off the stage, descending the stairs, and he like does a double take because somebody's there. And it just sort of actually shows you, like, without the pomp and circumstance of the royal family, the sort of charisma vacuum that is Prince Harry. You know, all that he's ever really garnered attention for stateside is whinging and moaning about his victimhood, how evil the royal family is, how poorly he's been treated. Are they racist? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on the day. The Todger detail, the frostbitten penis with mummy's cream. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So he's clearly spending his time in New York working on image rehab, right? He's really trying to recenter himself as a serious player in major policy decisions on the world stage.
Of course, we're hearing these awful revelations coming out about Mohammed Al Fayed, all of these accusers coming forward saying these absolutely awful behaviours from this man. And now Paul Burrell has popped back up again. Sun on Sunday, Notice that he keeps popping up, old Paul Burrell. Sun on Sunday, it's their side heading on their front page today. Sex predator Mohammed Fayed made an indecent proposal to Princess Diana. According to Paul Burrell, her former butler, apparently he suggested that he would one day sleep with her, and shocked Diana felt sick and was really upset at the proposal made to her in 1995. I mean, the problem with this story, I mean, not that we are in any way suggesting that Mohammed Al Fayed is not someone who has turned out to be absolutely awful, but we've no way of really verifying whether that actually happened, have we?
Yes, and Peter Burrell is a rent-a-quote on anything. So, I mean, and claims obviously to have had the ultimate inside track on Princess Diana's life and has been living off it forever since. However, there's no two ways about it that Mohammed Al Fayed did try and push Dodi into a relationship with Diana. He loved the focus of attention that this inevitably brought. And obviously we saw that, you know, that weekend they were in Paris. But there was no way that the Princess Diana was going to marry Dodi Fayed. But it was all part of Mohammed Al Fayed trying to having a degree of respectability. And you remember when he died that, of course, we then saw the shrine to Dodi and Diana in Harrods. It was all pretty unedifying. Look, he's clearly shown to be a despicable character by these allegations. And yes, but he didn't have a very good relationship, I'm told, with his son Dodi. Yet here he is. He was pushing it to try and make Dodi feel important. So, yes, there may have been something. But with Peter Burrell leading the quotes, I always put in inverted commas, because if you need someone to come up with a quote about anything to do with Diana, you just give a call into Peter Burrell.
Yeah, just to correct Paul Burrell, remember, just to correct
Paul Burrell, yeah.
But, I mean, the thing is, he has come up with some direct quotes, which, I mean, you knew Diana, didn't you? You'd met her a few times, so I don't know whether you can... It does sound quite Diana-esque when you know that she had a little bit of a sting in her tail sometimes. Apparently, he said to her, "I want you to marry my son because in Egyptian tradition, the father goes first. I'm going to sleep with you." And apparently she had a nickname for him. She called him Yoda from Star Wars, God because of his ego, and creepy and slimy. She complained he's always putting his hands on me, and he goes on to say, "I was in the car when she came running out from his office shaking and told me," and these are her exact words, that he said, "I want you to marry my son because in Egyptian tradition the father goes first." And then apparently she said, "Can you imagine making love to Yoda? I was disgusted by his behaviour." I mean, Diana did have little nicknames for people, didn't she? And so that does give it an air of truth.
Well, I'm sure because they went on holiday, there may easily be nicknames. But to the extent of this story, I don't know. Looks, they went on holiday. We don't know what went on, because she was happy to go on his boat in the south of France. So all these things suggest that they got on well enough. But where it was going to lead eventually, I'm not sure. And one of the things that I'm pretty sure it wasn't going to lead into a permanent relationship. That just was not going to happen. But Paul Burrell, yes, I mean, it's very colourful descriptions of what may or may not have been going on. But yes, she had a cheeky way with her, and she knew she certainly liked to rock the boat. And this was a way with someone who was a little anti-establishment, given that the Mohammed Al Fayed sort of profile, for her to be seen going out was clearly not what probably the rest of the royal family wanted to happen at all. So, you know, a man who ran Harrods, sort of a glorified shopkeeper, I think they often referred to him as. So, you know, it in many ways, it adds a little flavour to what is a horrible story. There's no two ways about it. What Mohammed Al Fayed did and throughout his life, it was all about trying to sort of make him seem more important in the eyes of the British establishment. He definitely wanted to curry favour, and his son dating the Princess of Wales, as was then, was clearly something that he relished.
At the end of this week, we know Prince Harry is heading, according to Tatler, Prince Harry is heading to London to attend the WellChild Awards without Meghan Markle, who hasn't set foot in Britain in 2 years. Harry was just in the UK in August for his uncle's funeral. He's been patron of the WellChild charity for 16 years, attends this event regularly. And this is one of the few organizations that he kept in contact with after he stepped back from royal duties. So this charity obviously means a lot to him. We talked earlier about how sources said it was really important to Meghan that she look like she was supporting Prince Harry. And when you think about how much the WellChild Awards clearly means to him, do you ask yourself why she doesn't support this in the same way that she supports Invictus? Or is Invictus several days where she gets several outfit changes, so it's a little bit more Meghan time, and that's why she might put more effort into Invictus?
That's a great point. That is a great point. And they have had so many missteps. I don't know if you remember, but they were invited to, it was around this time last year, the premiere of a movie about Bob Marley. And she showed up dressed like it was the Oscars. Everybody else was like dressed up, but appropriately so. And she was like in a full ball gown and hair and makeup. And then they were sort of striding, and she, of course, was in front because she's always leading him around like a household pet. And she's striding so confidently to the front row, and they're like, "Oh, excuse me, ma'am. Like, you're not only several rows back, you're in the middle of the aisle." The indignity. So, I think that she's very, very, very suspicious and aware that she might be knocked down several pegs when she attends these places. He is still clearly welcome. He is still clearly wanted in a lot of rooms. And he is sort of banking on goodwill that he built up as a working royal. She, on the other hand, is just a complete loss leader and has been since day one.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, Prince Harry is still Princess Diana's son, and he's still the king's son. And everybody looks at Meghan Markle, and there's a countdown clock on, hovering above her. They're like, when is she going to cut bait and take off? Or when is Prince Harry just going to have enough of it? But everybody, when it comes to this story about Meghan refusing to go back to the UK, you're going to see this mention in every article. And it's that ITV documentary, Tabloids on Trial. It aired in July. Prince Harry spoke. He sat down and did an interview for this documentary, and he said all it takes is one lone actor, one person who reads the stuff to act on what they have read, whether it's a knife or acid, whatever it is. And these are things that are of genuine concern for me. It's one of the reasons why I won't bring my wife back to this country. So Harry's saying on international television that he is afraid somebody will knife or acid his wife, a horrible thing to throw out into the universe. This guy is a catastrophic thinker. I'm wondering what your opinion is, how he navigates life like this. That's got to be exhausting to always be thinking about the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I actually think we've only seen this with him when it comes to Meghan Markle. He had 2 other serious relationships, and this was never a concern. He was little when she died. So it's only with Meghan. And I think that she actually promotes this kind of catastrophic thinking. She thinks she's Diana 2.0. She thinks everyone is out to get her. In that Netflix documentary, remember the opening scene? Like, they're in the back of an SUV. They've emerged in New York City from an underground garage. There's one guy on a bicycle following them, on an analog bicycle. And she's grabbing onto him and she's going, don't worry. We're almost there. We're going to be safe. Now, that's it. Diana died because her driver was drunk and she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. That's it. Mm-hmm. It's actually almost too ordinary a death for somebody that famous and that beloved. So this kind of catastrophic thinking is just extremely unhealthy. And I think a little more daylight from his overly dramatic wife might help him settle a bit. a bit.
King Charles, who said yesterday in a speech in Holyrood marking the 25th anniversary of the Scottish Parliament, he spoke of Scotland's uniquely special place in the hearts of my family, suggesting that his mother decided it would be where her life would end. She especially treasured the time spent at Balmoral, and it was there, in the most beloved of places, where she chose to spend her final days. Now, we've heard before how the late Queen Elizabeth, had concerns about the logistics of what would happen if she died in Balmoral. Perhaps those concerns were expressed because actually Queen Elizabeth all along had wanted to spend her final days there and wanted to make sure that that would be okay.
Well, yes, and we heard Anne quoted as saying that the Queen didn't want to be a burden, but in many ways the family said, yes, you should there. This is your happy place. And she was incredibly happy there. And actually, the King making these statements yesterday to the Scottish Parliament reflects the strong affection that the royal family have for all things Scottish. And one of the great defining memories of the drive back when from Balmoral to Edinburgh was that avenue of tractors, horses. It was actually became one of the great symbolic moments of the period of mourning. The people of Scotland out, you know, those farmers cleaning their tractors overnight to provide a guard of honour as the cortege went through was one of the great emotional scenes. And I think she was happy there. And that's why she was able to, you know, she did her last bit of work 2 days before she died, saying farewell to Boris and hello to Liz Truss. And then sadly, she died 2 days later, but she was happy there. We saw pictures with many member grandchildren and great grandchildren. It was where she loved to be. And the King is the same. He's no different. He loves being in Scotland, as he has proved. Obviously he's been up there for some time, Dumfries House, something that he's passionate about. All things Scottish resonate with the royal family. And for the late Queen, it was without question her very happy place. And that's why the family did their best to not feel any guilt about her final resting place being in Scotland, where she died, and obviously surrounded by everything that she truly loved.
Reports that Prince Harry homesick. I think that's important. You brought that up as well. Harry clearly spending more time in the UK, Meghan not attending a significant amount of trips, events with him. Do you think the time apart rumors will begin to circulate again soon?
I wonder, you know, so much of her celebrity is tied up in being his wife. And I think as he continues to make inroads with his father, things are going to get dire over in Montecito because she can't have that. And I think the other thing that we all those of us who watch this couple in this weird, dark dynamic play out, if he goes to leave her, she is going to imply, I believe, just my opinion, I believe she's going to imply some dark stuff about him. I think she's going to tar and feather him in the public square. So he's really kind of in a box that's really, really tricky to escape.
Yeah, I mean, openly acknowledging drug use when you have two little kids at home, talking so much about your mental health. These are things that hold up in a court of law when you're trying to explain to a judge why you deserve full custody and not your prince of a husband. I think you're absolutely right.
Prince Harry is back. I don't know whether exactly when he's arriving, but he's arriving into what can only be described as an absolute pig of a day. So he hasn't brought the California sunshine with him.
No, it is a pig of a day. I imagine he came in last night because the WellChild Award is this evening, something that he has been committed to for a very long time, not just coming this weekend, but over recent years, is a charity that's very close to his heart. So I'm going to give him plenty of credit in the bank in this one. It's something that he is passionate about. The charity absolutely welcome his input. So for him to be at the WellChild Awards, I think he's presenting some and seeing some of the recipients tonight, it's perfectly normal for him and something that he's always maintained strong links with and comes back on an annual basis.
Well, I'm glad that you've mentioned
be part of the WellChild Awards.
I'm glad that you've mentioned credit in the bank, because I wanted to ask you about that, because apparently Archewell was gifted 2 grants of more than $6 million over the last 2 years, but both of them are missing from the latest tax return that Archewell has put in. So there's some questions being asked about the missing millions.
Yes, but there may be, again, the next accounting period probably will expect to show that this payment has been received. $4 million, I believe, is the outstanding amount.
Yeah.
If it doesn't appear on the next tax return, then there may be some questions to answer for. But at the moment, it just appears that it's one of those accounting processes that they've gone through. Exactly what's happened, I don't know. I'm not privy to the accounts 100%, but it just probably is, more than anything, it's just not a good look. And inevitably, people are always putting their accounts under the microscope, and this is an example of that. I might just give them, again, some benefit of the doubt with this one, but whenever the next tax returns are due to be filed and it's not there, then that might be a more serious issue. But I'm not expecting this to suddenly reveal a can of worms.
According to the Daily Mail, Prince Harry stayed, at least last night, at a central London hotel just 2 miles from Buckingham Palace, less than an hour's drive from Windsor, where Prince William lives. Do you suspect, because we saw this during the Invictus visit, when Prince Harry was there to celebrate the 10 years of Invictus, do you suspect that tit-for-tat briefing about why Prince Harry didn't stay at a royal residence? Was he invited to stay somewhere with somebody else chiming in? Actually, he wasn't invited to stay somewhere. I felt like that really kind of hijacked the Invictus headlines last time, one of the last times Prince Harry was in town, because it should have been all about 10 years of Invictus, but we had King Charles invited you to stay here, you rejected it. Then Harry's team.
Well, then the story's taken a bit of a different spin, hasn't it? In that it's more like Charles has snubbed Harry because Charles is staying up in Scotland, and therefore there's not going to be a chance meeting. I mean, yes, I think it's inevitable, Kinsey, isn't it, that whenever Harry's over here, however good the cause is, whether it's Invictus, whether it's WellChild, and these are brilliant causes and incredible work he's doing, no one can take that away from him. The fact that there's this big rift within the family, the fact that he doesn't have a home here, there's always going to be a question mark over, is he going to see a member of his family? Will he see his brother? Will he see his father? And where is he going to stay? Well, he's certainly not, out on the streets. He'll be, as you know, he stayed at a very nice hotel, and whether or not he stays this evening, we'll wait and see. I suspect he'll be leaving and on his way to LA pretty soon. But I just think it's impossible to almost sort of have a story about Harry coming to the UK without it involving the fact that he's here with no contact with his family. I mean, it's the elephant in the room.
Very good point. Yeah, I agree with you that he's probably going to come back as quickly as possible, because he's been gone since New York. I mean, I'm sure that he misses New York.
He's going to want to get, of course, he's going to want to get back to his wife, to his children. He's had a really successful run of it in New York. I mean, I think it's interesting, isn't it? We've sort of seen this burst of activity by Harry and solo Harry. Meghan's not over here on this trip either, and it's she has in the past supported him at WellChild. So there's just a sense that he's driving this on his own. And I think he's here, he's standing on his own 2 feet, doing something that he's passionate about. He probably knows he's not the most welcome person in Britain, not least by his family. I think, a lot of the British public feel, well, if you're always moaning about Britain and the press and everything else, why bother coming back? But he does come back. He bothers coming back because these are things he really cares about. And he'll put personal differences, vendettas, fallouts, family feuds aside to be here for an evening like tonight, because it matters to him.
Prince Harry has left America. So, Kinsey, very good morning to you. Good to know that he's out of the way for you, but he's in the way here. And he came here yesterday, apparently, or came here possibly Sunday night, as appearing in his usual sort of charity capacity. But it doesn't look like he's going to see his dad, who's in Scotland. Doesn't look like he's going to see his brother, who is nowhere, even if he was next door to him, wouldn't go and see him. Doesn't even look like he's going to see his Uncle Andrew.
Yeah, I think Andrew's probably the last person he wants to see or be seen with, I should say. You know, I'm not going to give him that much of a hard time because I think WellChild is such a great organization. You know, WellChild rewards and acknowledges not only sick children, but the people that sacrifice to take care of them, like their parents, like their nurses. So that, you know, what a brilliant organization. Prince Harry's been associated with them for over 15 years now. What I will say that's probably a little controversial is that Prince Harry has been away from his wife for over a week now, and he looks pretty happy about it.
Well, this is a strange thing, right? Because they're normally kind of joined at the hip. Is this the first time he's been away from her for this length of time? Because it looks like he's going to be away from her for about 3 weeks, doesn't it?
Oh, well, he is. We do suspect that he's going to head back home pretty quickly, but he's got some other solo trips on the agenda coming up in the next few weeks. Absolutely. And, you know, I've had this conversation before over the years, the professional divorce. And I actually do think we are seeing it, you know, this time around. I think it's going to stick because Meghan has Hollywood aspirations. Meghan has aspirations that involve fame. And you know, Harry's getting criticized because he has this great big Netflix contract and dodged most of the polo shoots, right. With Netflix being disappointed that he's not all over the new Polo documentary. This is Meghan's world, and Harry has sacrificed a lot so that Meghan can have everything she ever wished for. And I think that now that he's set her on this path and helped her achieve things that she would never be able to achieve on her own in this town, I think that he's trying to focus on what he knows best, and what he knows best is how to show up to events like this, be absolutely charming, and get a lot of great press for really good causes.
Yes, and I suppose that's what he thinks is a good way of coming. But of course, here in Britain, we think to ourselves whenever we see Harry, well, he keeps telling us it's the most dangerous part of the world. He doesn't really want to come here. And why does he keep coming if he thinks it's that dangerous?
I mean, you're making a very good point. I think it's because ultimately he is homesick. Ultimately, he knows that his value is so much associated with who his relatives are. And when he's over in the UK, we're talking, you know, the first thing you said to me is he's not going to see his father, the king. He's not going to see his brother, the future king. So every time Prince Harry jumps on a plane and goes over to the UK, he not only reminds you and I, but the entire world that he is a member by blood of the royal family, technically no longer a working member, but that is good for ultimately the brand that he is trying to build in the States. That's all he has, this association with his family.
It really is. And it's kind of sad in a way, isn't it? That he clearly misses it. He clearly, you know, he likes this idea of being, you know, Mr., you know, charitable organisation, and he likes to talk about, you know, mental fitness, which is a new thing, not mental health. But as you say, he's never looked happier than when he's on his own.
It's true. I mean, even in New York, I hated the Jimmy Fallon skit. I thought it was beneath him. But the fact that he was able to participate in something like that, going through a haunted house, being himself for the most part, we did see some authenticity. And it's the type of thing we don't ever see when he's standing next to his wife. He's always very concerned about his surroundings. He's always very prim and proper. I would argue that I see him looking more uncomfortable and anxious every time I see him with his wife than I ever saw him when he was a working member, solo working member of the British royal family.
No, exactly right.
Tell me about Prince William and Catherine's, alleged non-plans over the next few days when it comes to the Duke of Sussex.
Well, of course, the Duke of Sussex is here for the WellChild Awards, and I know we're going to take a bit of a deep dive into that later on in the show. It's been a while, hasn't it, since Prince Harry has been over here. This is live time. We're recording on Monday night while the Prince is attending the awards. I mean, I don't want to say something that could be wrong, but I get the feeling, Kinsey, that he's not going to be here for very long. I get the feeling this is a sort of a fleeting trip for him. I'm told that he's not planning to travel to Scotland to see his father. He's not going to be going to Windsor to see his brother or his sister-in-law. I think this is going to be a bit of an in-out trip. And of course, I can't help but think every time the prince comes over to the UK, which isn't very often, it's an opportunity perhaps for some form of ice breaking between, if not Harry and his brother, because I think that's some way off, then Harry and his father. But that meeting doesn't seem to have taken place. Of course, the last time Prince Harry was over here was earlier this month for Lord Fellowes' funeral service, when he and William were both there, both at the same event, at the same memorial service, and no contact at all between the brothers. So it just seems to be the case that when Harry's in town, i.e. back here in the UK, back in London, it's fleeting and there's no family reunion, which is obviously a great shame.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Prince Harry in the UK right now. I mean, this is really the Katie show. You have all the players near you right now, but he is in London to attend the WellChild Awards. According to the Evening Standard, the Duke of Sussex is celebrating the achievements of resilience of seriously ill youngsters and their families during a rare visit to London. And we were the first to talk about it. I'm not trying to brag, but I'm trying to brag. I saw it in the Daily Mail like almost a month later. Thanks for watching. But Puck, the Puck was created by a former editor of The Hollywood Reporter, which we both know are great fans of Harry and Meghan, saying that this was one of the worst deals in Hollywood history, and that neither project, internally, they're worried that neither project will connect with their audience. And it's certainly, the return on investment is not there, because it certainly isn't going to recruit new users, new subscribers to Netflix.
Yeah. And apparently, Harry, very modestly, has sort of basically kept himself out of this series. And it's mostly all about his mate, his friend, Nacho Figueres. He's an Argentinian player. I'm sure he's big news in the small world of polo, but the rest of us have never heard of him. Nacho Figueres apparently is such a star of this series that at Netflix, behind the scenes, they've nicknamed it the Nacho Show. But their official verdict, the official verdict of Netflix bosses apparently is, and I quote, disappointing. Now, we heard earlier, Kinsey, that even before they'd seen it, according to what I've been saying, that this is not a mainstream sport. There's a reason people don't go and watch polo, because it's not a particularly good spectator sport. It doesn't have mass appeal. It's just for posh people with money. So even before they saw it, Netflix executives said, and I quote, that this series was, quote, not expected to connect. And now they've seen it and they say it's disappointing. This has got massive flop written all over it, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And, it reminds me of the headlines we saw around Harry and Meghan's Spotify dismissal, when we saw some pretty mainstream media outlets tear into the Sussexes for the first time, or hold the Sussexes accountable for the first time. We saw them in the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal was incredibly critical of them, and the Wall Street Journal is one of the most respected publications here in the United States. We saw them in Bloomberg. The Bloomberg headline was Prince Harry's podcast pitched to Spotify, talk to Putin, Trump about childhoods. And so we know through some of those stories and headlines that Spotify was at their wits' end trying to get something original from Prince Harry, who did co-sign on that contract. We got one bizarre Christmas special featuring Tyler Perry and Elton John. That's more like a Halloween special to me, if I'm being honest. I loved Tyler Perry and whatever his Medea Halloween movie was. But, we got nothing original from Prince Harry. It was all about Meghan Markle. It was all about archetypes. And this truly was Netflix so desperate to get Prince Harry's participation that they took a chance on him. They allowed him to have a polo show. And now they're asking themselves, Marco, where is Harry in the polo show? That's what's going on.
Yeah, apparently Nacho Figueres, to add to the problems of this production, speaks very little English, doesn't speak good English. So as the
Oh,
star.
really? So that's interesting to me because my old boss in Arizona, he runs one of the biggest polo tournaments in the States. And I remember the year Nacho was the star player, and he was trying to convince us that Nacho was like this big sex symbol, like he was the greatest thing to happen to polo. But I wasn't under the impression that Nacho had a hard time speaking English. So I'm really interested in seeing how Netflix executes that.
Well, there's a source at Netflix says it was nice of Harry to do his mate, this is Nacho Figueras, a favour, but Nacho speaks broken English and is not mainstream enough to pull in the ratings. Now, whether or not he speaks good English is neither here nor there, really. The point is, who the hell is he? And what Netflix executives would have been expecting would be the pulling power, the star power of the heir to the British throne, Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex. That's who they would have liked in this series a lot. I don't think he's quite got the memo. He's hardly in it, apparently.
He got the memo. He's just defiant. This isn't what he wants. This is what Meghan wants. And he told Oprah Winfrey that the reason that he signed his name on the dotted line when they left was out a sense of urgency, out of a sense of urgency, because he didn't feel like he was going to financially be able to protect his family security-wise. He told us everything we needed to know right there. This is not Harry's desire. This is not something Harry has any desire to participate in. This is all about making Meghan Markle's dreams come true. Meghan gets her cooking show that she was pitching in London before she met Prince Harry. She was pitching this cooking show to agencies in London, trying to get them to help her do an international cooking show. So Harry's busy making Meghan Markle's dreams come true, and in the process, ruining his professional reputation and ruining his polling numbers internationally. His popularity has declined because of him going along with Meghan Markle and trying to elevate her through tearing his family apart.
And neither of them have got the common touch. You know, the skill in television or journalism, you know, in terms of popularity is the common touch, you know, knowing what's going to appeal to big audiences. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a very noble calling. If you're good at that, you're going to do very well in life. It's the most important skill. The program I'm making, the film I'm making, is it going to connect with the people? Are people going to like it? Are people going to like it in big numbers? That's what's called a hit. Neither Harry nor Meghan have got the faintest idea about that sort of thing. They just don't know. And this polo series, it demonstrates that Harry has no idea how to appeal to a big crowd, how to appeal to the masses. He's made quite clearly a 5-part series about a niche sport starring his rich and posh friends that is going to be of no appeal to the average Joe on the street or the average Joanna on the street whatsoever. That's the problem. These two, they set up a production company and just assumed that what we do will be popular. Well, it's not that easy, is it? You've got to have that skill. Harry and Meghan do not have the skill of knowing how to connect with the public. Therein lies their problem. That's why their showbiz dreams are shattered and finished.
Well, I mean, I guess that was my next question to you. Do you believe if Harry and Meghan's Netflix contract is not renegotiated, if Netflix decides to cut all ties with Harry and Meghan, do you think that is the final nail in the Harry and Meghan coffin when it comes to the entertainment world? Or do you think somebody else like Amazon might pick them up, or somebody else might give them another chance because of that name recognition and that association with the British royal family?
Well, it's always a compelling attraction to a production company, a television channel, a studio. Oh, we got Prince Harry, you know, member of the royal family, internationally known. That is in itself kind of enticing. However, put it this way, unless Polo, his series at Christmas, gets very big numbers, then I can't say. I saw that face. unless they get very big numbers. I can't see Amazon Prime coming in afterwards and saying, oh, we'll have a bit of this. Because, you know, OK, they did well with their documentary series when they were basically reigning all over the royal family, calling them racists, calling all of Britain's slave drivers and racists, all of that. That did OK. But apart from that, they haven't really done anything. Her podcast series, again, pitched all wrong. Nobody cares about her rich and powerful female friends talking about archetypes, you know. Nobody cares about that's not commercial. And a series about polo, that's not commercial. And frankly, what exactly are her qualifications that she feels she's entitled to host a cooking show? I mean, I cook a bit. I don't think I should have a cooking series. I mean, I'm not, though I say so myself, I can make edible food. Some people say it's very nice. It doesn't mean I'm entitled to a cooking show, does it? I mean, you know, where is there a mass appeal? So to answer your question is, unless there is the unlikely event of massive audiences for polo, that's it. Harry's finished, and so is Meghan.
I agree. And I also think one of their issues, aside from not having, you know, an ultimate goal or a brand that they could build everything around, they're just throwing a million things at the wall, is their lack of urgency. You know, Meghan signed up with Limonada Media at the beginning of this year. Where's her brand new podcast? Where's this new podcast she promised us? It took them years to actually execute one project in multiple production teams, to actually execute one project for Netflix. And while they have currently produced 3 or 4 that are, you know, ready to go, only one of those was a commercial success. And it took them forever to get Archetypes up and running. So there is no sense of urgency. And I mean, to me, that translates to not just a sense of urgency, but it translates to their work ethic. You know, they're just knocking around, waiting for opportunities to show up at their door. I believe Meghan was a hustler at some point. That's how you marry a prince. But I don't know if she is anymore.
Yeah, exactly right. And they've kind of blown it. So I think that we're seeing the very tail end of their showbiz ambitions. The mood music is quite clear. Netflix aren't going to renew this deal, as you say, dismissed by Puck, the respected podcast in Hollywood, as one of the worst deals in Hollywood history. The productivity rate has been pathetic. And as you say, they don't seem to be able to buckle down to anything. So I think they've got to look to a new direction in terms of what their future may hold, because it ain't going to be in showbiz. They're not going to be making TV shows. They're not going to be making movies. Hollywood doesn't want to know. And you and I have discussed the bullying claims against Meghan enough for the audience to know that this is a factor too. The fact that she has been accused of rampant bullying on both sides of the Atlantic is now the talk of Tinseltown. Everyone is talking about it, and that means people won't want to touch her with a barge pole.
We know that the Princess of Wales has been spotted since finishing her course of preventative chemotherapy. We saw her up in Scotland for a church service just a few days ago. She went up and had a long weekend with Prince William. But she's also had 2 meetings. The most recent meeting was at Windsor Castle, and all about her very exciting carol concert, which is going to be happening in December. And I think it's a really positive sign that we've got the Princess of Wales attending these meetings. We were given guidance by the palace that she intends to be at the Cenotaph in November. We know we're going to see her for that, as long as she is feeling up to it. She very much wants to be there to support the king and the royal family. And this carol concert is something that she has done now for 4 years. It's the whole theme is about bringing people together. And for her, it's about bringing some of her and William's charities and representatives and people who have helped to serve the community together for this really lovely carol concert, which takes place at Westminster Abbey, which is, of course, very special to William and Kate because it's where they got married. We've become used to seeing not just the couple there, but their young brood as well. Last time they took all 3 children. I'm hearing rumours that that's going to be the plan for this year as well. It's very much a family occasion. You'll see the Middletons there as well. And this has really become very much an annual fixture in the princess's diary. So I wasn't surprised to see that she'd attended a meeting for it. I mean, I would expect her to be doing that because Christmas is actually not that far away. But 2 meetings in 1 week. The first one was to do with the Early Childhood Foundation. I just think Kinsey sends out a really positive message, actually, that she's feeling well enough to host these meetings. Of course, she could be doing it in Zoom, but she's not. She's there in person and she's hosting these meetings. And of course, they're being recorded in the court circular, which is a list of official events carried out by members of the royal family. And it's just so nice to see her name back on the court circular, isn't it?
Well, let me just tell you, you're absolutely right about Christmas being, just around the corner, because I've already started threatening my nephews with Santa Claus is watching. I'm going to tell Father Christmas. I'm already all over that. So you're right.
You haven't even got to Halloween or Thanksgiving yet, yeah. Kinsey.
I know. I wanted to ask you, because you just mentioned how the Middleton family will be there. I've seen what I believe is some unfair commentary about Catherine and William's video announcing that she was no longer going to be pursuing chemotherapy because she was temporarily, in the clear. They're still going to be watching what's to come, and they're still cautious about everything. But I'm seeing unfair criticism that while the palace has reported that the cancer diagnoses for both the king and Catherine brought them together, that it was there was some sort of sinister meaning behind the fact that the king was not featured in their video. I completely disagree. Perhaps he just wasn't comfortable with it. Perhaps their schedules didn't line up. Do you have an opinion on that commentary that has been happening over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not surprising that the king wasn't in the video. I think it's, this was very much Catherine's message to the nation. Her parents have been there every step of the way and very much behind the scenes, and they're sort of keeping the family together. So I was surprised to see the Middletons in it, actually. I would have thought that Kate might just have kept it to her, William, and 3 children. I thought it was lovely that the Middletons were in it, but I don't think we should read too much into the fact that the king wasn't. I think there is clearly a closeness between the 2 of them. I mean, I was told that, in fact, when I mentioned earlier, didn't I, that William and Catherine were seen up in Scotland together going to a church service. Now, I understand that there was a private meeting between the king and William and Catherine, just an opportunity for them to catch up while they were in Scotland. Because, of course, the king is having this extended stay up in Balmoral, to mark the anniversary of his mother's passing, a little like the late Queen used to do when she went up to Sandringham, and William and Catherine went up there without their children. And I think perhaps part of that reason was to spend some time with the king, because, of course, he's got this big trip coming up to Australia and Samoa. So I don't think we should read too much into it that the king wasn't in the video. I think you see enough in terms of the closeness between the king and Catherine to know that it's a really close relationship. I mean, look at the effort that she went to for Trooping the Colour to make sure she could be there for his official birthday parade. And look at that positioning. If you remember back, Kinsey, it was Catherine standing shoulder by shoulder with the king, just because she didn't choose to include him in that video. As you say, it could have been down to scheduling. The king's been in Scotland for the entire summer, and possibly it just wasn't deemed appropriate. But I don't think people should read too much into it. And I think the relationship is a very close one.
According to Sky News Australia, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have been offered use of Princess Diana's childhood home, Althorp, as a new temporary UK base following their eviction, which I think is an aggressive word, from Frogmore Cottage. Now set on 1,300 acres, Althorp contains 28 listed buildings and structures, in addition to the main house, which I've got to tour one day. I'm desperate to see it, but it's never open whenever I'm over there. The report claims Althorp could become a secure temporary location for Harry and his family if they decide to return to Britain. They mentioned that Earl Spencer promised at the funeral of his sister, Princess Diana, to constantly look after his nephews. However, I've actually seen the Earl openly admit in recent years that his family did not actually have as much influence as he alluded to during that fiery speech. In addition to offering the Sussexes use of Althorp as a base, the article claims that Earl Spencer is trying to mediate between Harry and Prince William behind the scenes. And I mean, to that I say, Earl Spencer is not speaking to half of his children. What are the odds truly that he is inserting himself in this? Is this just somebody trying to stir the Spencer versus Windsor pot all over again?
Well, I don't think Earl Spencer's leaving Althorp anytime soon, so I don't think Althorp is going to become the Sussex's permanent base. That said, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Earl Spencer's extended an invitation to Harry and Meghan, should they wish to come over to the UK. I mean, there were those rumours that they might want to come over at Christmas, and I think Earl Spencer's invited them to stay there. So I do think Harry has a close relationship with his uncle and with his aunts, Sarah and Jane, Diana's sisters. I think the Spencers have really made a point of keeping that relationship with Harry close, and I think given Harry's own relationship with his own family, he's very grateful to have those links to his mother's side of the family, and of course to the UK. But I think any suggestion that Althorp could become their sort of UK base on a permanent basis is wide of the mark. But as I say, there is contact with the Spencer family. There is a closeness between Harry and his aunt and his uncles and his cousins on the Spencer side as well.
Where's Meghan?
Oh, man, I think she's holed up in Montecito, pressing refresh on American Riviera Orchard to see if it's gone live yet.
Like this. Come on, come on. That's never going to happen as far as I can work out. Yeah, we discussed this the other day. I mean, Harry he came to London with the WellChild Awards. He went to South Africa, performed very well. He's good on his own, you know. He is good on his own. Despite his many sins, you know, a lot of people in Britain, including the royal family, you know, will find it very difficult to ever forgive him for the Oprah interview, for the awful, spiteful series on Netflix, labelling all of us in Britain sort of slave-driving racists. And, of course, his nasty little book, Spare, which just slung grenades at the royal family, called his dad a skinflint, called the whole family racists, and so on and so forth. So a lot of people will always struggle to forgive him for that. I might be one of them. But that said, yeah, as we're seeing here, when he's on his own and he makes these public appearances, you have to admit he does do them well. He's a good performer solo, but not so good with his wife.
Yeah, I think that so there are two theories that are being tossed around. One is that this is a new PR strategy by the publicists that are working with Harry and Meghan, that Prince Harry is, you know, he has an established base of people that fell in love with him as a young man. They might have been angry with him because of Spare, because of Netflix, for all the things you listed. But at the end of the day, they have room for him in their heart. So let's push him out independently and let's win those people back over, with the hope that inevitably that love would seep through to Meghan Markle because that is his wife. But this other theory that I think is far more interesting is that Prince Harry is being, you know, sent out on his own to break the rumors, to dissuade from the rumors that he is whipped, that it's Meghan that is running the show. They want to show him independently. You know, just look at that video right there of him, him with the Clintons, and him just kind of like all over the world representing good causes, to try to kill the idea that Meghan Markle has him on a leash. I don't know if either will work, because, yeah, I think he looks great on his own. It reminds me of Princess Diana. It really does. But I will not forgive. I can't forgive him for, you know, revealing in Spare that really probably intense and probably really vulnerable conversation that Prince William was trying to have with him after Prince Philip's funeral. I mean, that was a sacred moment. Prince Harry talking about going in and standing next to the Queen's corpse, sacred moment. I mean, I'm going to have a really hard time forgiving him for a lot of the things he's done over the last 5 years. And sorry, not sorry, I do feel like he was influenced by his wife. I don't see him being so angry and capable of doing those things solo.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. The problem with Harry is, you know, he's alternately likable, and then he's a pompous fool. You know, he can be really dislikable. These ridiculous lawsuits and I'm fighting the media, Dragon Slayer and all this. Just really up your own backside. Shut up, you pompous idiot. And then the next day he'll do some visit and be entirely likable, you know. So he's got it in him to be popular. And this is the point. This is the point. And I believe you're right. I believe Harry has reached a point in his life. He's gone to Montecito, he's gone to America. Let's face it, it hasn't really worked. He's worried. He yearns, he misses the popularity he had in this country. People used to love him before he did Mexit, before he went to the States with Meghan, before he met Meghan, in fact. He misses that popularity. That's why he's been planning these more and more trips back to Britain, because he feels somewhere, somehow, he can regain the popularity that he once enjoyed with the British people. I mean, I would say good luck with that. Yes. Now, with a view to all of this, I think in his quiet moments, he suddenly realised, I've got to stand up for myself. I've got to forge my own way. And I love being popular. Every time I go out with this woman, Meghan, every time I'm seen with her, I'm not popular.
But it's also all about her. Remember in Colombia when their president said, oh no, their vice president said, I saw her on Netflix. I wanted to bring her out because I saw her on Netflix. In Nigeria, Meghan is part Nigerian. It's all about her when they're together. Yeah,
but you see what I'm saying? I think he has decided somewhere, you know, deep down in Harry, he does have a backbone. We know that. He fought bravely in Afghanistan. He's not a wimp. I think he's decided, look, this woman is kind of toxic. You know, I'm married to her, I love her, she's the mother of my kids, but in terms of publicity, she is toxic. And that toxicity rubs off on me. So I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out on my own a lot and see if I can be popular solo. I think that's what's going on, that he's made
I'm going to pull an Isabel, and I'm going to disagree with you right here. I know this is the second time you've heard this on your show.
Yeah, what's going on? Hey, I'm in charge here. Wait a minute. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
But I think Prince Harry is under a spell when it comes to Meghan Markle. I believe he is completely manipulated and believes that she is not only the reincarnation of his dead mother, but that she hung the moon. I do believe that they have publicists saying, you are better on your own. You get a lot of negative press when you're standing next to Meghan Markle. It reminds people of some really very recent negative executions by the both of you. So you need to go out independently. I believe that we are seeing Prince Harry actually taking some legitimately decent advice from PR professionals. I do not believe that he recognizes how toxic his wife is. I think he would still tell us that she's not a bully, despite the numerous reports that she's a bully. I think he would still defend her. I think he just finally had to break down and take someone else's advice, because for 4 years, they've been running into walls. They have been told time after time that they are failures, that things aren't working out, that it's not happening in the way that they thought it would. So I just think he's listening to other people that he probably should. And to your point about him being, you know, we can like him, but he also has these really nasty moments. I think the same about Princess Diana. There's a great, I think it was Ivanka Trump. No, it's Ivana, right?
Ivana.
Trump's ex.
I like Ivanka. I prefer Ivanka. That's a good.
Trump's ex-wife was on a late night program. Maybe it was Leno, but it was one of our American late night programs, and they asked her about Princess Diana, and this is at the height of the Diana fame and chaos with Charles, and she said, oh, she gets on my nerves. Oh, she's saying, oh, she's such a whiner. And I see the same with Harry. I think that I see the exact same with Harry.
I mean, I think Diana, much as we all admired her and everything, she was great with people, a very generous-spirited woman. But she was a bit of a me whiner. She did complain a lot, and you see that in Harry. The point is that, OK, you say, I say Harry has made a decision, I need to get out on my own. You could be right. He, in a rare moment of wisdom, he's taking good advice from his image makers. But here's the point. Whatever Harry thinks about his wife, whatever he thinks about Meghan, here's the truth about her. In terms of publicity, look, at the very least, she divides the room. She's never going to be popular with everyone. But I say, in publicity terms, after The Hollywood Reporter and her ridiculous, disastrous campaign to try and quash the story that she's a bully, that she has become, in terms of publicity, toxic. She is bad news, and toxic publicity rubs off. And that is why it is a good idea for Harry not to be seen with her.
I agree with you there. Here's what I suspect Meghan Markle's team would tell us if we called them up and they didn't immediately hit ignore when they saw Kinsey and Kevin calling, knowing that they've watched our YouTube videos religiously. I think that they would tell us that Meghan is quietly organizing the launch of American Riviera Orchard, and she is quietly getting ready to launch her cooking show on Netflix. And they would try to tell us that she has a lot going on behind the scenes. I do think we are about to be hit and overwhelmed with a Meghan avalanche with the Netflix show, the cooking show. She is trying to be the next Martha Stewart. Good luck with that. And I do think that we're going to be overwhelmed to the point of annoyance by it. That is what I firmly believe.
But that show's going to come out, obviously, after Harry's Polo series, which is going to come out in December on Netflix. And you sent me an Instagram shot. Finally, I know what Nacho Figueras looks like. He is the superstar of polo. Sometimes crowds of up to 10 people gather to see him play that stupid horse sport that's very cruel to horses anyway. But seriously, we've got that coming out. And I just wonder, you know, they call it the Nacho Show because Harry's hardly in it. And I'm just wondering whether that might destroy all of the Sussex's showbiz ambitions, and when her cooking show comes out, everybody will go, we've had enough of these two. And don't forget, Kinsey, both of these series, the Polo series and Meghan in the Kitchen, her cooking series, were branded by Netflix executives as not expected to connect, which means basically they thought they would be rubbish. They now say that they're tremendously disappointed with Harry's Polo series, and I don't think they can be that excited about Meghan's series because there's no plans for it to come out anytime soon, certainly not until the new year, no announcements. So let's just say this, the excitement surrounding it is not palpable.
Also, we don't know Meghan as somebody that entertains people or in the kitchen. They're clearly using this show to try to change people's perception of her, but we're not going to buy it off the top because it doesn't relate to anything we know about her. Yeah, if she did something in fashion, I think people would be more willing to lean into that because people, you know, a lot of the things she wears sells out. But I don't look at her and think of her as somebody that opens the front door wide open and says, come inside. Well, you know, it's like more like,
there's no real history of celebrities, you know, or royals for that matter, you know, who in private are good at cooking, you know, or they fancy themselves as good cooks, suddenly saying, hey, I'm going to make a cooking series. There's no history of that being a success. The one kind of semi-exception to that rule I can think of is Stanley Tucci, who makes great cooking shows and is a pretty handy chef himself. But by and large, there's no real syndrome here. You can't just turn round like, I'm Meghan Markle, I'm married to this ginger royal guy, and by the way, I'm pretty handy in the kitchen. Hey, I'm on telly cooking eggs. I mean, that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. But we do know that this was one of her ambitions because she was pitching this before in the UK before she met Prince Harry. She's always wanted to be a host. She's always wanted to be a presenter. So this is Prince Harry again making her dreams come true. But I think you're right. I think they are going to slaughter the polo show because we all sighed like, what the heck is this, when they announced the polo show? But we understood that Netflix needed to get the last squeeze out of that lemon, right? And so they were going to give Prince Harry whatever he wanted because they might get a little bit of his personality if it was something that he pitched and he truly believed in. And to find out that he is barely in this thing at all, that, I mean, disappointment is probably a nice way to describe it. I'm sure Netflix is livid.
They're furious. That's what I heard. They're absolutely furious. They didn't give. They
knew it was a bad idea.
They didn't give him $100 million, or between them, to make a series about horses, horse sports, that he's not in. The only interest possible in polo would revolve around his royal stardom. But apparently, you know, he wouldn't be told. He didn't think that he should be in it too much. Very modest of him. But he just doesn't get it. He just doesn't get it. The people in Netflix couldn't give a damn about polo. All they're interested in is him, but he didn't really get that. So that has always been his other problem, Kinsey.